Well, I just heard there's a winter storm coming in tonight, 3 to 6 inches of snow, 19 degrees and wind. So I thought it would be a good night to try out my hot weather, cold weather emergency survival tarp. So I'm actually set up in my backyard, and I've tried to simulate the situation as it would be were I hiking with what I normally would carry on a trail hike and got caught out. So I have no ground pad, I'll have no sleeping bag. So what I've done so far is set up the tarp. That went quickly. Gathering resources took time. And there you have it. There's some in a black 55-gallon bag. It doesn't look like nearly enough to last me through the night, but we'll see how far I can get with it. And I've also set up a little stone fire ring. A neighbor of ours was throwing away their Christmas tree. And that's going to be my bedding. And over that is just a plain old $1.98 plastic tarp. The purpose of this activity is to see what will it be like to spend a night out in cold, stormy weather with just the clothes you're wearing, a reflective tarp, and a fire. I'll also have a quart of water with me and probably some trail snacks, because I would usually carry that. And so my objective tonight will be to make it all the way through the night. It'll be down to about 19 according to the Weather Channel. Make it through the night wearing just what I'm wearing. What I'm wearing is long underwear, BDUs, and on top of that my rain gear, rain pants, which is a bib type, so maybe it'll help keep my kidneys warm during the night, and a poncho jacket. What I could make for dinner now is what I always carry with me as my go-to meal, oatmeal. And I like that because if I am ever stuck out in the cold, oatmeal with some raisins and sugar will give instant energy and longer lasting energy. It's not the instant oatmeal type. I have most of one water bottle gone and the other one almost full. So that's fairly realistic because I would have drunk that much on a hike. Right now what I want to do is get a fire going because it is getting pretty cold and it's wet, and I have no shelter for the fire, so I'm hoping I can keep that going tonight. What I'm doing is trying to scrape a little bit of dust together here, even though it's wet, because that's little fibers, the only thing that'll catch on this old rotten stuff. Well, it's going. Now I could really go for something hot to drink because it's going to be a cold night. I don't feel like eating, so I'll leave my oatmeal alone, but I think I'm going to make some hot chocolate. I may just use the little stove I always carry because I don't want to burn down the fire to coals in order to cook and then have to try to build it up to stay warm. Well, it's about 10 o'clock. That hot cocoa really hit the spot, and that should warm me up and keep me going pretty good. The sleet has let off and there's no snow falling, so I guess that'll come a little bit later tonight. My couple things about sleeping. The pack is going to be my pillow. I do not have a bag or bivvy or anything like that, so what I'm wearing is going to be my cover, and I want to talk about boots. One of the cardinal rules is you never sleep in your boots, and the reason is that if it's really, really frigid, you risk frost nip or frostbite because your socks are warm, your boot liner is warm, and as they cool and the extremities cool first, you risk getting damage to your feet, or at least being really uncomfortable, and you need your feet to get out. So what I'm going to do is remove the felt liners from my boot, put on fresh, dry, heavy wool socks, and then, because I don't have anything to protect me from air movement, I'm going to put my feet back in the boots, very, very loosely laced, just so that they're not much more constrained than they would be if I had a sleeping bag. And that should do the trick. Notice the two water bottles are sitting close enough to the fire so they don't freeze. Also wanted to show you a little goodies bag I always carry. I use miso soup a lot because it's very warming and very solid. This is mate, which is like a tea except that it's caffeinated, so it doesn't taste like a tea. Hot chocolate. And I always like to have a few pieces of candy because it's a great morale boost and an instant sugar heating aid. It's about 2 in the morning. I almost lost my fire. The weather has been alternating between snowing and raining, and right now it's just finishing up, I hope, part of the rain cycle. So what I've had to do is to, I guess you can't see it very well, I got some logs, even punky logs, anything to put over the coals so that the coals would not be put out. And so the fire's starting to rebuild a little bit now, but it's cold, and almost losing the fire made it considerably colder. It's about 3 in the morning. It's about 6 in the morning. It's still sleeting. Hardly any fire left. I ran out of fire about 4:30. The only way to keep warm was to move around. So that's what I did. And now what I'd like to do is give you an after-action report. Then I'm going to cook up that oatmeal, get some heat in me, and then get on with the day. I made a few notes in my Write in the Rain notebook, how appropriate since it's still sleeting. So I'd like to go over what went well and what I need to improve. First thing that went well is that I actually survived the night. Now, lest you think that my being in the backyard makes that unimportant, I want to point out that 19 degrees and snowing and sub-freezing plus sleeting is the same whether you're in the woods or 25 yards from your back door. So it's a pretty fair test. So what went well? The tarp and fire combination proved to be pretty serviceable. It's not the first night I've spent out in the winter, but it's the first night without a sleeping bag that I spent out in the winter. The idea of wool socks inside boots with the liners removed worked very well. My feet were never cold all night. Having a hot drink was a very good idea. Pine insulation was good, but it was too thin and I left too many big branches on it, so they both poked me and tore my tarp. And 5, the parka and bib pants worked out very well because I could close up everything except my nose and mouth, and stay warmer, and dry was important because of the sleet. And the wind kept changing a lot, so it would blow smoke in under the tarp, which also brought more heat, but it also brought the rain. And the 6th thing I guess I would mention, I did remember to continuously monitor face and extremities for comfort and temperature, because those are the most vulnerable to non-freezing cold damage or frost nip or frostbite. So that's what went pretty well. Things I would improve. I would have more ground insulation and a better ground tarp. And next time I will roll all of that pine. I'll cut off the bigger branches and I will roll it in my tarp to make a little mattress out of it, because the way I did it, just laying the tarp on top of it, the pine insulation kept shifting, so my hip and shoulders were often right on the cold ground. Second thing, I'd put wind barriers at each end of this tarp, because when the wind shifted and blew through here, it was really cold and wet. Third, I'd make sure I had enough wood to last the night, and I knew I did not when I started. So what I did was I rationed it. And the good news with the rationing is that it lasted me until almost 4:30 in the morning. The bad news is that I often woke up cold, and at least twice woke up shaking strongly from being way too cold. Fourth thing I'd improve, I should have made myself cook up that oatmeal and eat it at about 4 in the morning when I was getting really cold, but I was very cold and lacked the discipline and motivation to do it. In a genuine survival situation, that could have been a fatal error. So those are the things I would do differently. I'll be glad to hear from you what other errors you picked up and what things you would do differently. Thanks for staying with me through this night, and I look forward to hearing from you. See you on down the trail.